Welcome back to episode 4 of Alien Cocoons. My dad moved faster than I thought possible. He had the floor open and the cabinet open without making a sound. I went up closing everything behind me to the sound of 4 shots. I got to the garage to 4 aliens laying dead on the floor, the garage door going up and the Jeep running. My dad yelled over the engine as he gunned it in reverse. "Hang on and watch my 6." We were already in the yard spinning sideways. He headed for the same trail I had taken to Jasmine's house. We went about halfway and stopped. We hoped in discovering their 4 dead comrades they would also remember the Jeep and believe everyone had left the house. We weren't 100% sure, so we hid the Jeep and went back on foot to make sure Jasmine and Mike were safe. My dad's Jeep wasn't that far away, so should we have to sacrifice mine? We stopped about 20 feet inside the tree line. We were about 40 feet apart with the trail about 100 feet south of us. We had good positions to fire on anything from any direction with a clear line of sight into the garage. 4 dead aliens. Let's see how this changes their outlook. We didn't have to wait long. Within minutes I noticed the shadow of the ship on the ground. It hovered there for a few minutes. I couldn't see the ship yet, but the shadow grew much larger, so I knew it was coming lower. After another minute, I saw a silver ball go into the garage. It hovered over each of the bodies. I lost sight of it when it went into the cabin. This worried me. I was 100% sure I had closed and locked the hatch, floor, and cabinet. I just wasn't sure what that thing was capable of. When I could see the ball again, it was moving slow, very close to the ground. It followed the trail the Jeep had taken. I watched it come into the trees, but it only went about 20 feet down the trail. It hovered there for a few long minutes before moving back toward the clearing. It moved around the tree line as if it was looking for us. It must have given the all-safe signal because the ship landed. 2 aliens suddenly appeared, the black and gray one. This led me to believe each of these ships must be assigned a certain area with 6 aliens on board. They went into the garage and dragged the bodies into the clearing. The ship then shot out something looking like a flame, and the bodies were gone. No smoke or ash left. The aliens then returned to the ship and left. My dad and I moved close together. We decided they weren't going to search the house. We believed they thought we were gone. Time to head to the Jeep. When we got to Jasmine's house, we would be exposed for about 1.5 miles as we went down a dirt road before we could enter the trees again. I wish it had rained now. The road would have a cloud of dust for 20 minutes. My dad then pointed out the color of Jeep I had bought, red. He had not liked it when I bought it. He said someday I would wish I'd bought earth tones. Today was that day. We stopped inside the tree line. Nothing moved. We knew they were close. They would be watching for us to make our move. We tried to see through the trees. Nothing above us, but it was hard to see up through the canopy of the trees. Dad checked his weapons. I checked mine. Let's do this. And we were off. Across the yard, down the driveway, and onto the road in a split second. Dust was rising behind us. Not as much as I had thought. Suddenly I saw the ship hovering over the forest behind us. It wasn't moving yet. Almost there. Suddenly the ship was above us. I thought I knew where we were turning, but Dad flew past our turn. He went about a 1/4 mile too far, then slammed on the brakes. The dust was so thick I couldn't see anything. He threw the Jeep in reverse and floored it. The tires were spinning, throwing rocks and dust everywhere. He yelled, "Watch for the trail," as we flew backwards. I couldn't see or breathe for that matter. Suddenly he jammed on the brakes again. He threw it into drive and turned left. We were in the trees in an instant. I looked back and all I could see was a cloud of dust. Dad had thought it all out. If we couldn't see through the cloud of dust, hopefully they couldn't either. The trees were very thick, lots of brush. We could hide here if we needed. I watched our 6 as we flew down the trail. Dad turned into the trees, leaving the trail. He parked and asked, "Did they follow us?" "I don't think so." "I didn't see anything." We moved into the trees on foot. We were taking it all in. We couldn't see up through the trees. and I didn't see anything behind us. Let's move. I followed my dad through the trees. I don't think we were even breathing, we were so quiet. When we got to Dad's Jeep, he had covered it with brush. We started to pull the brush off when someone said, "Don't shoot me, I'm a friend." We both looked around and didn't see anything. Dad said, "Come out slowly with your hands up." Suddenly I saw a man walk out from behind a tree. He looked about my age. He was average height and build. Dirty, covered in tattoos, shoulder-length stringy hair. He looked scared to death. Dad asked what he was doing out there. He said he was waiting on us to come back. He said he had heard the Jeep when Dad had left it. When he finally found it, Dad was already gone, so he thought he would wait for us. We were his only hope. He had been hiding in the woods since something strange had landed in one of his fields. Fields? I grow cannabis around the edges of some of the clearings on the property I own. He explained how he would grow pot on the north side of 3 clearings. He had it all figured out, electric fence and all. He had a small shack hidden in the woods. He said the sheriff helicopter had looked for it for years. He said he was out tending his crop when he saw the ship fly over. So he hid in the woods. When he thought he was safe, he slowly walked out. He looked around real good and believed they were gone. He said one second they weren't there, the next they were landing on the edge of the clearing. They just appeared. I told my story of seeing them. He said he hadn't seen anything come out of the ship yet, but he didn't go around it much. Dad asked, "What do you mean nothing has come out of it yet?" He said after it landed, it has just been sitting there. It's still sitting there? Yeah, since late Saturday. My dad and I were more than curious. My dad held out his hand. "I'm Steve. This is my son Scott." "I'm Joe. Show us where this thing is." We moved through the forest without sound. Joe knew how to move without drawing any attention. We reached a chain-link fence. We followed the fence to a not-so-traveled road. There was a gate that Joe opened. Beyond the gate was a shack. It looked uninhabited, but it was where Joe lived. He was right. This place was well hidden. We didn't walk much further when we could see the reflection of the ship through the trees. Dad stopped us. Dad said, "Tell me everything." Joe said the ship was about 100 feet above the trees. It just seemed to appear on the ground. I asked about the aliens. Joe said he's never seen any. This didn't jive with what happened with Jasmine and I. I thought for a second, "You said it landed Saturday?" "Yeah, about an hour before dark." This didn't make sense. That was about 18 hours before I saw them. But there it was, just sitting there. Dad and I had our ghillie suits on, so we told Joe to wait there and started moving toward the clearing. As we neared the clearing, my dad told me to aim for the eye. He had shot at the body, but it didn't seem to do any good. We stopped just inside the tree line. The ship sat at the other side of the clearing, gleaming in the sun. My dad pointed to one end of the ship. I don't think these things like electricity. Sure enough, when they landed, one end of the ship had set down on the electrified fence. I looked around and found a rock. I threw it at the ship. It didn't sound metallic, more like a real thick plastic. There wasn't any reaction from the ship. We decided to approach the ship. Honestly, it was a piece of engineering art. It was seamless. The landing legs seemed to be all a part of the body. They didn't seem to be attached. It was as if the whole thing was carved from one block of something, but when they were in the air, the legs weren't sticking down. We walked around the body. There wasn't any sign of any way to enter the ship. Dad said, "Where's the door? How do they board this thing?" I told him what I'd seen. They just appeared, and to enter, they just touched it, and they vanished. Dad said, "Really? They just touched it?" Dad reached out and touched the ship. I will have episode 5 next week. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Thank you.